Hey humans. You know what's a really great thing about owning your own business is that you can shift and pivot and move and add things in, take things away. It's just this whole creative process that I see unfolding before my eyes because this business has been intuitively formed. I formed it 4 years ago, and I was in a way different place than where I am today. I didn't know where I would be and still don't know where I'll be. But what I know is when something feels right, I move toward it. And one thing that I'm seeing unfolding within this space is that I am an oracle. What is an oracle? An oracle is somebody that tells stories. And they are stories about my life, but my stories are healing. My stories help you to see yourself clearly because I am a mirror for people. So today, what I want to talk about is why the business that I'm in right now is really important. What I do is I deconstruct programming and belief systems, and the wording may, I'm still tweaking that out a little bit. It's perceptual and identity-based healing. I don't coach around it, but what I'm doing is just showing people how they relate to themselves and how their self-concept is not allowing them to heal, not allowing them to manifest, not allowing them to love fully and create and, just live their best life. So there's probably going to be a couple parts to this video because I want to talk about some of the beliefs and identities that I had about myself that I recently just uncovered in the past 8 years of my life. So the first thing I'm going to start with is when I was 5 years old, my father left my mom and I. He promised that he was going to come back home. He was in the Air Force. We were out in Washington and we moved back to Pennsylvania, and he never came back. And that event deeply transformed my life. I could not make sense of it. Like, how does a 5-year-old make sense of something like that? So, like any 5-year-old would do, you start to think thoughts that you're bad, you're unworthy, you're unlovable, because I knew that my dad loved me before I left, but then the sudden departure and him just not coming home ever again. I never did meet him ever in my life. He died when I was 27, still out in Washington, and I never knew him. But I do remember like these small behaviors that I started to incorporate. Like I used to hide in my closet, and I didn't want to be seen because I felt like I was bad at the core. Like that is a core belief that I formed because of somebody else's actions. So it's taken me a lifetime to unpack that, and I have. But how that has impacted how I show up in the world has been like it just runs so deep. Like in so many facets of my life, in my, career, in my, serious relationships with men and not serious relationships with men. I mean, we've all dated probably, but so yeah, that's just one example there. And then one of the next big pivotal moments in my life was that I moved from one town to another when I was 10 years old. And immediately I could tell there was a stark contrast, excuse me, in the financial climate in this town. So the first town that I lived in had a diverse demographic. So the economic climate was a little bit more diverse. And then I moved to, a different town when I'm 10, and it's, strictly white, and it's an affluent community. And, I lived in some of the poorest places of that community, and just seeing how kids that had money, which, you can see who has money because they have, a different pair of sneakers for every day, and, they have, 10 pair of Jordache. Yes, I'm dating myself, but I could clearly see how having those things uh, got you favor with teachers. And so, I started to form ideas around that at age 10, that like, people that have money have more value, and I'm not worthy because I don't have money, and I will never have money. And I would hear my parents, discussing money, and they struggled and they had a hard time, and that worried me as well. And so it took me a long time to unpack that as well. And money is just purely, it's energetic currency. And if you know how to really work your energy, you can pull money in through manifestation. But that's a topic for another time. And then I would have to say that probably the next event that occurred in my life at age 12 was when my brother was born, my half brother. And so I became a caretaker to him because that's what happened back then. Um, it was the 1980s, and that's just how, things went. You took care of your younger siblings. So even before my brother was born, though, I had this really empathic, intuitive sense about me where I felt like I needed to take care of other people and I needed to manage a room. And I'm sure that all started with the abandonment wound from my father. So it just how deep that wound runs, it just it affects and impacts so many areas of your life. So with that being said, naturally I became a nurse because I was like a star, overgiver, overfunctioner, empath, intuitive, reading the room, knowing how to um shield and protect myself because I could read other people's energy, and that's basically how my gifts were formed. But there's so many other pivotal moments, and that's what is important. So I also started to use substances at a very early age. I pretty much drank my entire life, and dabbled in some recreational things. But when I recognized that I needed to quit drinking 8 years ago, the first thing I said to the person that was helping me is, I want to know the truth about myself. And that is how ReImagine Studio came to be. I wanted to like overturn every rock, every belief that I had ever thought about myself, to find the truth of who I am. Not what my parents said I should be, not what society said I should be, not what my own experiences said I should be, but who am I really on a soul level? And what I have found is I'm an artist. I'm I have so many talents, and it's hard to put. I don't love labels, and I don't wanna, start labeling myself in other areas, but it just opened and expanded my mind so much that it's amazing. So that's what I want to help people with, is to understand how these identities and beliefs and worldview really shape how they show up in their world every single day, and how that creates your reality. So oftentimes these are just programs running in the background. We're kind of unconscious to it because that's just the way it is. But I'm here to tell you that that's not just the way it is. Okay. So If this work resonates with you, please feel free to reach out for a 90-minute clarity session, and I will probably run a part 2, part 3, part 4, who knows? Because I have many more beliefs to share with you that I had to unpack. So bye for now. Have a great day.